Calling the attendance, please. Roll call, Liz.
Okay. Janine LaPrade is not here today. Marty Mayo. Here. John Reiser, not here today. Lisa Pappas. Here. Tim Redmond.
Hello, this is Kathleen Brand. Can you hear me? We cannot hear any audio from you.
Oh, okay. 1 second.
I know you sounded.
We're gonna work on that.
We can share. You're not, she's right. I don't have my computer.
Yeah, we hear you, Rob.
I hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Okay, so one person can hear, but not the others. Pam, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Kathleen, if you start to hear us, let us know.
Monday. Might have gotten put in wrong.
I guess, what's the sense, Barry? Have we done all we can to get the sound on?
As far as I can tell, I mean, if we got other people who.
All right, well, sorry, Kathleen.
Do you want me to start over with the?
Yeah, all right, call meeting order, roll call.
Okay, Janine LaPrade, not here. Marty Mayo.
Here.
John Reiser is not here today. Lisa Pappas.
Here.
Tim Redmond.
Yes.
Will Weber.
Here,
And Liz Wiseman is here and Barry Lonick is here.
good.
I don't know.
Everyone's have the agenda.
I have a lot of his stuff.
Yes.
but not-
Okay, were there any suggested changes to the agenda?
Tim, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, Tim had indicated we should comment on the Buy Protect Sell plan that has been recently adapted, slightly modified, I guess. It was attached to the minutes, right?
That was in my email, right?
Yeah,
So since then, we have talked and we're just gonna give a little update, right?
we were gonna give an update. I don't know that there's anything that's,
What was attached to the agenda and the minutes that you sent out? Is that the finalized plan or is that,
oh,
Does
I mean,
that
the
predate-
board,
that
the
predates the
Buy Protect Sell
discussion?
is what the board has adopted a long time ago.
okay, it wasn't changed in any way then from previous
No.
discussion? Okay. Well, then we'll consider that. We'll put that in under old business, I guess. If there are comments on your,
No, that's fine.
Well, we were gonna give a report because we met on Tuesday. Lisa's got
Okay.
a little short report for us.
all right, good. Well then, if we can have a motion to accept the agenda,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, approval of the minutes. Thank you again for an excellent job, Liz, on the minutes. Were there any comments? Thought you covered things pretty well, maybe even more than you needed to, but it was good to see the full review. Any comments? No? Then may we have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
Marty.
Could you send it to me again so I have it in my record?
Okay,
Sure.
and a second? I'll second. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Yes.
Aye,
Yes.
okay. We welcome our public participants here for public comments, if any. Would anyone like to speak up about anything? Rob, Pam, anything? Hearing no comments.
Well, Rob's got a hand up here, I see.
And Kathleen does too.
Yeah, I see that as well.
Kathleen, welcome.
If she can hear us.
So Kathleen, you would like to say something?
Sure. Thank you. Sorry that issue with not hearing was on my end. I apologize for that. Would like to personally thank Liz Weissman for the minutes. These are very well written, and I personally appreciate that we know what's going on. I also want to mention that I think you guys have part of your mission that you may not be accomplishing. So if we look at proposal J, the voters voted to permanently preserve farmland, open space, wildlife habitat, scenic views, and here's the important part, and protect drinking water sources and the water quality of rivers and streams. The reason I mention this is because the township just approved the huge development called Heritage Woods, where they're putting in a wastewater treatment system that I really wish, Mr. Weber, you had been involved, that you had come to the board meetings and talked about that. Unfortunately, the board approved that. I think that's a huge mistake. Now, secondly, in front of the Planning Commission, and this is where I would ask that you please get more involved with the Planning Commission. On Monday, they have a proposal to develop the so-called Knights of Columbus property on Dexter Ann Arbor Road. This is a foolish plan. The developer would like to take water under I-94 to service their property. As far as I can see, they have provided no evidence that drilling under I-94 has an impact on the Gelman plume. Of course, it should have an impact on the Gelman plume. You guys had part of your charter is to protect the water. I would please ask that you attend on Monday and speak in opposition to this development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rob, did you have a comment?
I think so. I don't remember
Yeah,
what that was.
we haven't had further developments of the kerfuffle here in the last several months, so I think we're good. Is that it, Rob? All right, Pam, did you have comments?
I did not. I just came back from a long day away from home 5 minutes before the meeting, and so I'm still acclimating. You guys go right ahead, do your thing. You're great.
All right, thank you for your comments. John, can you hear us? John Reiser?
He may not be on it.
Yeah, he may be driving, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he is.
He said he'd be driving now.
Well, we'll go ahead and hope that he'll join us as he's available. Reports of other commissions. Did anyone attend the Planning Commission? That would have been John. John? We'll come back to that. Parks, pathways and preserves. I know we've had some developments here. As per the suggestion of the last meeting, I did contact, who was it? Who are the names of the people? Roy and
Rita, who
And Rita.
share,
the Parks and Pathways
Parks and
Preserve.
Pathways.
And I
yes.
did not hear back, but I think Liz has had.
Well, I'll tell you what, I thought we were meeting yesterday because we usually meet the day before, but then I realized the calendar is such this month that the second Wednesday is next Wednesday. So actually, we didn't meet yesterday. But I will just tell you all that Will did send a letter to them and say, hey, would you like to get together to meet jointly so that we can kind of know what each other is doing? And they did not get back to you and were most apologetic, but said, yes, we absolutely want to do that. We just haven't met since you said
Okay.
that. So they'll meet next week and I'll have the results.
More details
Right,
and communicate before the next meeting as to what they said, so we can
Yeah, yeah,
potentially arrange something sooner rather than later.
yes. So I don't have an update because we didn't meet yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any other, so there was no meeting at
No
all?
meeting at all yesterday.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right, so we'll
next
move
week.
on then. Board of Trustees. I know a lot went on, but we don't, did anyone attend the meeting? No?
No.
All right.
I did.
Oh, would you like to, would you like to say a word or
Is
two?
that John? Can he?
Yes.
But can he contribute from Zoom? I think that,
Can he talk? It's just voting.
I thought that he had to be an on-site participant.
John, do you know?
I don't want to participate because I'm driving. I want to focus on that. I just want to say that I'm listening and can't be here today because I'm headed to a State Bar of Michigan conference and meeting. Thank you.
All right,
Was
fair
there,
enough.
was there anything we should know from the Board of Trustees
He
meeting?
can't, he's not supposed to.
I thought he could participate, but does not vote.
I think he has to be here in person in order to participate or vote.
We'll move on. John, happy listening. Sustainability Task Force, what's going on there?
Yeah, okay, we have penultimate final drafts completed and they are still being reviewed, but the final draft is supposed to be completed by June 19th. And it will go to the Planning Commission on the 26th. If they approve of it on the 26th of June, it will go on to the BOT for discussion and, I don't know, approval. Also, on the 26th, however, the Planning Commission will be discussing the plans or ideas for concepts for the Jackson Road. Future, what might be planned for them. And then a comment about the KFC, which got mentioned. The reason it got postponed to the 26th was that for some reason, materials which the client had submitted to the township didn't get printed up for the planning commissioners to look at. And so although they could make a presentation and discuss things, there were a lack of materials. And so they decided to postpone the content of KOC, that discussion, until the 26th. Let's see. Some expectation, I don't know if it's proper to say what Jan expects, but the issue at the last meeting was that the hydrology report, the investigation had not been completed, although the plan for the hydrology study had been approved by, and I'm not quite sure who approved it.
This is a township-wide effort, the hydrology study?
No, the hydrology study is required or requested by the township, the planning commission, for the implications of the a sewage plant on the KFC property for the community sewer. And a lot of people have said, well, we're not sure they have to get rid of the sewage. And so they have proposed a community sewer plan. And there has been, the planning commission has said that given the very sensitive spot where that is, KFC, they want to have a hydrology study because they want to know about the groundwater and the on the groundwater though, and where if it's safe. They're claiming that it is, but they don't want to pass it, accept it until there's been a hydrology study completed, and they haven't completed it, and so whatever happens, it looks like it's not gonna happen. No decision until after that study's completed.
Okay, so further consideration then is pending the hydrology study, is that it?
Correct. So the applicant wanted the PC to approve it contingent upon an appropriate hydrology study. And Jan does not think that will happen because that gets you too far down the road and it's too hard to bring it back if the hydrology study comes back very negative. So she expects that there will be, they'll put it down or put it on hold until they come with a hydrology study.
Yeah.
So that's the KFC.
Can I have your notes?
Yeah.
It would help me
Yes.
summarize. Thank you.
I thank you for that. All right. Anything more from Sustainability Task Force? Have you completed? Is that wrap it up?
Well, there will be a meeting tonight.
Oh.
So that's why I talked to Jan, because I obviously couldn't report on what will be discussed tonight.
Right. Okay, well, I hope your meeting goes well. Old business. So Tim, you want to insert here your discussion of BioProtect Cell as per your email?
Well, Liz, what are you?
I can interject. We met on Tuesday, June 6th, just to touch base about the RFP for the BioProtect Cell, cross our Ts, dot our Is, make sure that we are well prepared for the next RFP that we may want to issue, and making sure that we have our processes up to snuff to follow their criteria, and having a discussion to make sure that all of that criteria boils down to what is in the public good for Scio Township. And we feel like we're in a good space to proceed with the next project that may be coming aboard.
Good. Now, is this something that you've had to pass legal review with the RFP, or is it, are you confident that it lays things out in an understandable and legal way?
I think it spells things out in a legal and understandable way, and it was approved by the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
And the only things we're doing is writing, and Barry's written the RFP directly based on what was approved. And we had an online form to make sure that we can tabulate our rankings and scorings in a very systematic way that follows the RFP. You know, if this is the criteria, we're making sure that we're ranking it based on that criteria. We're going to do the same exact process this year, but I'm hoping to improve it a little bit so that it'll just automatically tabulate the scores. So anyway, it's just technical things. We're really just, it's pretty much the same process as before, but it's just, we're just
More detailed.
enhancing processes.
Right.
And confirming, do we want to do the same approach in terms of a flat price and whatnot? And we agreed that a flat price, it went well before, and to do that again for any next project that may be coming aboard.
All right. Well, thank you all for your effort. It sounds like you're making real progress. It's good. Good. Okay. I think we have no matters of new business. I guess there are a couple things we should do before we go into closed session. One, we would normally have a meeting in July. Is there any problem for anyone to attend a meeting in July? What is the date of that meeting?
13th.
13th, okay.
And we do have my open session report before we go into closed session as well.
Right, okay. It's 13th, does that work with everyone? July 13th?
It's fine with me.
I think so,
Okay,
yes.
looks like we'll have a quorum.
Will and I discussed that if there's not business to do, then we can cancel it. But for now, I think we should just leave it on.
Yeah, we'll get as much as we can done today and then make that determination. All right, then, open session consultants report, Barry?
Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to touch on. One of them is the ongoing saga with the Lake Erie RCPP funds. Again, this is the $7.4 million that has been dedicated to the local partners, which is the Greenbelt Program, County Natural Area Program, us, Scio, Ann Arbor Township. I think Webster, yeah. And I think the Land Conservancies are involved in that also as partners. We had a previous RCPP award that we used on one of the Andrus easements a couple of years ago. This is the new one where the funds were actually approved in this RCPP proposal and were available theoretically October 1 of 2021, so well over 18 months ago. And Greenbelt staff have been diligently endeavoring to work out the process by which we can actually then access those funds. So they're hanging around right now waiting for us to go after them. And there's been, a variety of issues over the last 18 months, not the least of which was the lack of somebody actually in the position at the state office of Natural Resources Conservation Service that was dealing with RCPP projects around the state, and there are a number of them. We're not the only one. And somebody was selected for that staff position about a year ago. And so my colleague Rosie Paul Donaldson from the Greenbelt Program has been endeavoring to work with Tim Redder, looking at the statute and the regs that have come out of that to develop a proposal that we thought could get through the national office in DC to approve our process so we can actually access these funds. Apparently, somebody was in that role in DC and then left, and a new person came on and they had a different interpretation and blah, blah, blah. It's just going on and on and on. Recently, there was, there's a couple of databases to which all of the partners have to be, have updated information. One of them is called SAMS, S-A-M-S, and one of them is DUNS, D-U-N-S. I'm not sure what they are. Somebody else deals with it. But we have to have those updated every couple of years. The Webster Township one had not been updated. And so when the Webster Township clerk went in, this is about 2 months ago, we were told that they weren't going to proceed any further with the review of the process proposal until everybody's DUNS and SAMS numbers were updated, and Webster's had gone out of date, and they had changed their email address, and so they couldn't go back into the system, and with their old email address. It was just a crazy hassle, and it took the clerk a couple of months of diligent work. And some days she said the whole day online and talking, waiting on the phone to talk to somebody and yada, yada, yada. It finally got squared away. And so we think, okay, that's, we're all set now. We're going to move ahead with this. Well, Rosie and Tim then, finalized this most recent document, sent it off to DC. It got rejected again for the umpteenth time. And they're like, what do you people want? We don't understand. And so they're now back at, trying to figure that out. So we still don't have access to those funds, which is very frustrating because we've got properties that would be suitable for that. I'm sure other partners do as well. In one of the conversations I had with Rosie recently, she said that they regretted actually going after these funds because it's been such a hassle and we don't have access to them. And I encouraged her to be diligent about it and not give up because it's $7.5 million of dedicated funds. And the working idea was that we blow through that and we go back and say, look at all we've done with this. And they give us another $7.5 million. So it's potentially going to roll over several times so we can take advantage of this funding opportunity separate from the competitive ASAP application cycle.
How do we, how is it divided up? Who gets to use that money?
Bless you. It's been so long, I don't remember the formula anymore. I mean, I've got it somewhere. But every, and so it was a 1-to-1 match. So between the partners said, we'll put up 7.4. I think actually we started with 10 and it got whittled down to 7.4. So everybody's got a chunk of that. And I can't remember what ours is off the top of my head, but you know, it's $1 million or I'm sure or more that we have potential access to.
More or less proportional to past projects or something like that.
And funding capabilities. And so, you know, we have a dedicated millage that generates about $600,000 a year. Webster's millage is $200,000 a year. So, you know, theoretically, we had 3 times as much funds committed for our uses. And of course, if one of the partners doesn't have a project that they can use, then one of the other partners can jump on it. So we might have $1 million initially, but we may end up with, you know, $2 million.
So do you think the problem is surmountable with, I mean, is it just kind of small stuff that we just forgot to cross some T's and we're gonna have to cross them and it'll be okay?
It seemed like that, but that was like 3 or 4 iterations ago.
Are you saying you can't get anything done?
Are you making Very good.
Yeah.
You know, it's
When was the last rejection?
very recently. Like last week. You know, as I was preparing, actually it might have been earlier this week that I got the message from Rosie. I'm saying, you know, I'm going into these meetings, you know, with my commissions and committees and stuff like that. I want to give an update on where things stand. And she said the most recent proposal that she and Tim Redder had put together got rejected in DC. They don't understand why. She did say that there was, and this is not a localized problem. This is apparently across the board, across the country, with getting these RCPP awards actually functional. So the awardees can actually access the funds. But she said that she did come across another project somewhere else in the country that had got approved. And so they were going to try to use that as a template to say, well, this one in Oregon or whatever it was got approved, and here's what we're doing. It's very similar, or you know, tweaking language or whatever. That was their next endeavor to see if that would work.
So there's an online database of approved projects that you can look at? I mean, it's
Yes.
public record.
Yes, but there's not many of them because it's just been such a pain in the butt. And people change jobs and, you know, so forth. So
Would Jeannie be helpful for this? Because she has experience dealing with federal agencies. Doesn't she? Jean, our new LPC member, Jeannie?
oh, no, it would,
No, okay.
thank you for asking, but and you know, Remy Long from the Greenbelt program you know, was the person who got I think it was the second RCPP award. There was one that just covered the north part of the county and a little bit of Scio, and then a second one that covered the rest of the county. Now we're doing the whole county in this new one. The second one was a Greenbelt-led project, and so he was the one that wrote the proposal, and all the funds got used for various projects, including one here. And that was like part of the argument was, you know, look, we've already done this. You know, we've been successful. We've leveraged more funds than we said we would. We conserved more acres than we said we would, et cetera. That was good enough to get us in the door to have the funds be committed, but to access them is still not available.
Is it correct then to say that the application that will be available to applicants for these funds has not yet been approved by the feds?
I would say the process, and in this case, you know, so with the ASAP program, we submit the application, you know, with a particular property. It's something similar to that with the RCPP. It's just that we don't have to go through, we're not competing with other parties around the state, other entities, as they call them. So we're sort of developing our own process.
Okay, when you say we, I mean, you're talking to Rosie, she's they're the ones that are doing it, right?
Yeah, on behalf of all the partners.
Okay, so but is an application they're putting together or is it a proposal for?
My understanding is that it's a process that all of the partners will utilize to be able to access the funds. So if we do these, 6 or 10 things, that will provide us access to the funds.
I'm on the webpage for the RCPP and it looks, based on the verbiage, it looks like they are acknowledging that there is a problem. And
Is that right?
Yeah, and that they're making, NRCS has announced a concerted effort to streamline and simplify the program based on response from partner and employee feedback. So, and they issued a press release. So obviously they know that things need to be streamlined. And this is
That's good news.
a press release was issued just in May.
Did we talk last time about I think I forwarded an email from I think it was a woman who used to work at NRCS and quit because she was so frustrated and became a consultant to guide people through this process instead.
Biden-Harris administration announced availability of $500 million for improved regional conservation partnership program to better support partners, producers as part of Investing in America agenda. So to try to help this run more smoothly. So perhaps there's hope.
And what is the federal agency response that they're working with, that they're trying to get the approval from?
It's Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, which is a sub-agency of the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
And I see on the National Agriculture Land Network email from yesterday that you probably saw that today there was a USDA webinar on how to apply for the RCPP program. Did you see
By
that?
August 19th.
I did not see that. Yeah, you can apply all you want, but you don't have access to the funds.
How to apply.
Yeah, so that's a new opportunity to apply for funds that you'll never get access to. That's the catch-22 here. You can put all your work into it and submit it, maybe even get it approved, but you'll never get access to the funds.
All right,
That's all on that.
let's move on.
And then I wanted to just mention that I have, as of a couple of days ago, wrapped up spring monitoring. And everything checked out fine. I did take a number of pictures at the Wren's property. And met Mike out there a couple of days ago. I had some questions for him because there had been activity out there. That there were changes to the property that had occurred since the easement closed, which was just over a year ago. A year ago in a couple of days, it showed up in some old photos and stuff that I get reminded about. So it was June of last year that we closed that. And so I wanted to ask him about stuff. And so, for example, he's installed a number of utility poles with electricity and water. And he's going to extend that further as well to supply water for the cattle that he's going to be moving out there, he said, I think next week. And he said they're ready to go. So it's just a matter of getting everything.
He's got fencing, right?
He's also installed already a good bit of fencing and said he's got more to do. And it's, really nice fencing with, good solid, wooden posts and good solid fencing. It's not just.
Is he doing that himself?
Or, I don't know, didn't ask.
Good job.
I think it's all cut too.
Yep, and bailed. So those things were much more straightforward. A couple of the questions that I had for him were on some land surface alteration, some of which was in the building envelope, and he was able to confirm that the septic field had been installed. There was a time limit on that based on the sale of the property a year ago. If you remember, the estate and Mike had to put some money into escrow in order to construct the field, and they had a certain period of time in which that had to be done. And so that was completed. So he has a series of septic tanks and then a line that goes out to the septic field. That's all been installed, all within the building envelope. below. So in my monitoring report, I took pictures of all of those things just to say, this is changes to the property that have occurred since the easement closed. They're all permitted activities, but just to be on record, in case it's not me doing the monitoring next year or sometime in the future, I want the next monitor to say, I understand this is a permitted activity. The one thing I was curious about was in the gravel pit, the old gravel pit that was to the west of the building envelope, there was a pretty good size excavation by a backhoe that had occurred there, and it wasn't clear what that was.
When you went out recently, you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
for the monitoring distance. So I asked him about that when I met him out there a couple of days ago, and he said that they were doing some stuff out there and found a car that was pretty much buried out there that I'd never seen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and there's more junk out there,
Typical farmer thing.
And also I think that, Dick Wren's, rest in peace, like a couple of other farmers I've come across over the years, it wasn't just his stuff that got dumped there. It was too much stuff. Cars and boats and household trash and so forth. At the edge of the gravel pit, there was an enormous amount of debris. Some of it got cleaned up. It was actually Christy Aiken's husband that got hired to do that work with a crew of people. And they called me up and said, okay, we got it done. I went out there and looked at it and said, no, you don't got it done. There's just lots more stuff here. And then they called me a second time and I went out there and said, no, you don't have it done yet either.
Wow.
And there's, they could have brought in a backhoe and taken truckloads of stuff out. I just said, clear up the surface, and so we don't see lots of trash laying around. But if you dig down a little bit deeper, there's always going to be more there. It was just that kind of a.
So there's a car buried.
There was. He has dug it up and removed it. But there's a place where they had excavated to pull the car out, and so it was like it's not the kind of activity that's permitted in the easement. So I wanted to know what that excavation was. And he said, well, there was a car there. Sure enough, it was so wide. So
there wasn't a jar of money in the car.
Didn't ask. So a couple of other things like that, but otherwise the property looked great. Oh, there was they have constructed, or in the midst of constructing, a pump house for the well that they, I think it's a new well that they've installed, concrete slab with walls, and a couple of the walls had siding on it, but that was still under construction. Again, a permitted activity. It's an agricultural building within the envelope, but it's a new thing. And so I took a picture of that. There was a fenced-in garden space that's a Project Grow garden. And that was new to the south of the house. So again, I just took pictures of all these things and said, here's changes that happened to the land. They're all.
And Project Grow what is Project Grow?
It's a nonprofit organization locally that provides garden space for people.
Okay.
There's a number of locations around the.
Like a community garden?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But he put up a fenced enclosure there. And the posts are obviously at least 10 feet above the ground. With heavy duty fencing around that to try to keep critters out. And I'm guessing that was, it looked like all the rest of the fencing, so I'm guessing it was at his expense to do that.
I have a silly question. The photos that you take to document the visits, where are all those housed?
So I shoot them with my phone,
Yeah,
and then I transfer them to my computer,
yeah.
and then I create photo pages similar to the ones that are included in the baseline documentation report. And that's what I'm going to have printed off to include then with the monitoring report for the property this year. So they'll be available here in the basement of the township hall where all that stuff gets stored.
In hard copies.
Correct.
Does anybody else have access to those photo pages? Like if you got hit by a truck tomorrow, does anybody else have access to those photo pages?
So the printed ones would be there. In terms of
Printed
the
ones.
computer files, no. But I can, I mean, I've already transferred a bunch of other files to be on the server here. Basically everything. So when I complete a project, I bring everything over, either hard, copies or the computer copies, and they go on the server.
I wonder if it wouldn't be bad to, and maybe this is, but, to come up with since we now have an IT person at Scio, if we can come up with a generic email address like sciolpc@scio.org that we can just copy, send things to that group email address, so just like we have a group email address for us, just as a backup. Just a thought.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be hard for an IT person to do that.
Agreed. So that was the only thing I wanted to mention about monitoring everybody else. There were no changes to the properties, so everything's good.
Nice. That's exciting when it runs.
Yeah, he's
Things are happening.
making real progress.
Mhm.
He's got a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm.
And the cows are coming home next week.
Yep, so we on pasture there.
Yeah.
All right, so did you want to pick up anything about Delhi Woods here, or is everything in closed session?
I think it's fair to say, since it's in the report, that based on our discussion at the last meeting, that our attorney, Mr. Scio, sent a letter to Mr. Burnham, the landowner, and that a response was received from Mr. Burnham's legal counsel. And then Joe shared that with me, and we agreed that he should respond again, which he has done now. I stated in my notes here that he was going to do that. That has been done. I think I circulated that to you all. Just because if we didn't respond, then there would be that our standing in the process would be diminished. And so that was why he said, I'll send the letter, but then we should have a further discussion about.
And Jim Fink was copied on Joe Fazio's letter,
I
right?
believe that's the case, yes.
Okay. He said he was gonna do that, yeah.
99% sure that happened.
So there hasn't been a response yet.
Not to the second letter.
Second
That's
letter.
correct. And so Joe would like to discuss with us possible next steps, which could include some litigation. And that's why we were talking about doing that in closed session.
Well, I think we should go ahead and do that in closed session. Since there's,
Do we need a motion to go in closed session?
I think, are we there? Are you finished now?
I am finished, and I told Joe 5 o'clock, so I'll just give him a quick call if we're ready to do that and say we're ready to jump into that.
Okay, well, we have other matters in closed session too, so.
That's correct.
If he joined later.
Yeah, and Mr. Reiser's suggestion was making sure that the closed session included the purchase of property, like we usually do.
Include
So
pending property
the motion,
evaluations.
Correct.
That's what we always do.
right,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
for purposes of pending property evaluations.
Exactly that.
Could you ask the residents if they would like to do a final public comment? And then we'll just leave and I'll leave you to your meeting.
I think we could oblige, yes. Would you like to make further comment?
That was my public comment. Thank you for, sorry. Thank you for doing that. And I appreciate you guys and I will leave you to that. Thank you.
Pam,
Okay.
that was you, Pam, right?
Pardon me?
That was you, Pam.
Yes,
right?
it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Pam. Looking forward to your newsletter.
Yeah, just say also, let me say that I don't have any anticipated actions back in the open
Okay, so
session.
there's not likely to be any votes, so there won't be a reason necessarily to come back into open session.
Right, which is, I figured that, that's why I suggested that. So
Right.
Kathleen, Rob, anybody else? Here's your chance. Otherwise, thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We have not done a